Hello, and welcome to another course from the Bachelor Program of Lions University. Today's course is about effective club meetings, and we appreciate very much you participating in the Lions University program. First, quickly, being this is one of the first programs that we have developed, I want to give you a brief overview of the Bachelor Program for Lions University. Hopefully, you know that the USA Canada Lions Leadership Forum has instituted this program to give Lions an effective list of courses that they need to complete to help them foster effective club leadership. All of the club level courses are in a bachelor program. Those are listed on your screen at the present time. In addition to that, we have a master's program, which are a set of programs that will be introduced starting in the first quarter of 2015, guiding and helping people develop the skills necessary to provide district level leadership, including zone and region chairman. Starting next October, we will have programming for developing a doctorate program. And the intent of the doctorate program is for Lions to develop the skills necessary to do what I'm doing today. And that is develop a training program and conducting effective training sessions, both live and through electronic means, for developing Lions leadership. So back to the bachelor program, you're taking today course 104 of effective club meetings in the bachelor program, which is one of the required courses. In addition, there are 5 electives. These courses will be offered, continue to be offered occasionally via live webinars, or as you are doing, available to download and view via the internet. And after you take the course, and you can sign up for those courses via our lionsuniversity.org website. You will be able to, obviously, as you've done now, watch a webinar via recording, download the necessary handouts, take a test, which is the way you receive credit for having completed this course immediately following it, by taking a simple online test and receive credit toward your degree. For the bachelor program, the requirements, in addition to taking and successfully completing the 15 courses and the test, you must attend a USA Canada Lions Leadership Forum starting from year 2014 forward, which means either this past year in San Juan or this coming year in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And all of that information can be found on the Lions Forum website. In addition, to help us track you and to make sure that you receive credit for this course, it's real important that you go and activate a membership. If you've been to the forum since starting in 2013 forward, you already have a, quote, forum membership. And you need only enter your email address and password as indicated on the members.lionsforum.org website. If you forgot your password, there's a little button there to click, and it will help you either remember that password or send you a new one that you can later change to something you remember. If you have not attended one of the past 2 forums or have not registered for the upcoming forum in Grand Rapids, you also can participate in this program by signing up for the Lions University student membership, which will give you, again, access to your profile where we'll be reporting the completion of courses toward the degree. So be sure to do those 2 steps as part of the Lions University program. Just a little bit before we get started on me. My name again is Mark Miller. I am from Georgia in the United States. And the key thing you need to know about me tonight is I've been there and done that, like many of you probably have, in that I have been a club president. Tonight we're going to talk about what it is necessary to really conduct effective club meetings. And so I'm basing what we're talking about tonight on my experience as club president, as well as other Lions offices and duties that I've had inside of Lions, as well as outside. So let's get started about talking about effective club meetings. And the first thing I want to ask you there to sit and think about for a second, what is the number one reason Lions leave a Lions club? I know that's a terrible way to start a session, to think about, well, what's the main reason that people quit a Lions Club or drop out of a Lions Club? So think about that for a second. If you need to pause the video to think about it, please do, because we're going to continue on here in just a second talking about the number one reason that folks drop out of a Lions Club. Well, a poll was conducted several years ago of former Lions, and of that poll, 68% say that long, boring meetings was the main reason that they dropped out of their Lions Club. And so when you really think about it, the effective club meetings are really key to the growth and development of your Lions Club. I want to call them, those club meetings are really kind of like your family dinner. If somebody came and sat down at a family dinner, they could probably tell pretty easily whether you're a good, well-rounded family or a dysfunctional family. Likewise, my experience has been, and several of you probably can share this too, that if I go and visit a club, I can pretty well tell after that club's meeting whether I'm attending a club that's dynamic and growing and prospering and doing things, or whether it's a dysfunctional club that has problems. And so the first and maybe the most important aspect to make sure your club is functioning well is to make sure that it is having effective club meetings. So let's go through the objectives of this session. First is, of course, to define the importance of the club meeting in the life of the club. And I think we just did that. It's kind of your lifeblood. Secondly, we're going to describe what makes a bad meeting and review how to avoid that. The third aspect of tonight's session is to explore a sample agenda for a club meeting. Finally, we're going to define key values that must be included in every effective Lions meeting. And our last topic that we'll cover, our objective tonight, is to review speaker management techniques. So let's get started meeting those objectives. Great meetings, great club meetings of any kind, are clearly the lifeblood of your club. And in that context, I want to be very clear. Your club meeting is where your club members will learn to function and relate to each other, plan activities, conduct activities, and share and build a fellowship together. And so very much a great effective club meeting is going to represent the lifeblood to your club. So think for a second. I want you to maybe even pause the video and jot down on a piece of paper some things that you think of when you think of bad meetings. And we've all been in them. We've all had bad meetings. We've all been to them. So think for a second and write down 5, 6, 7 things that you think quickly come to mind when you're wanting to define what is a bad meeting. Once you finish that list, restart the video and we'll take up from that point. So bad meetings. I'm sure you have a list. I came up with my list that I want to share with you. By no means is mine exclusive. I'm sure you may have some things that I didn't think of, or things that happened in your experience at bad meetings that really should be on my list. Email me and tell me those. But let's go through the list I came up with. The first one is really a pet peeve of mine. The meeting doesn't begin on time or end on time. In today's society, particularly people that are working and involved, and especially if you're wanting to recruit younger members of your Lions into your Lions Club that still have families and careers and things of that nature, time is very important. And if you don't start your meeting on time, and equally importantly, end on time, you're actually showing a lot of disrespect to your members. I remember a few years ago going to a local Lions Club meeting not of my club, but of a neighboring club, and it started on time, but the president was having such a great time, and he just intentionally drug it on. so that a meeting that started at 7 o'clock was still going at 9:15. And I found myself sitting there thinking, my gosh, I got to get up and go to work in the morning. And I really have other things I needed to accomplish tonight before that. And your members will think likewise. So what's very critical is that you are functional and punctual with your meetings, beginning and ending on time. Another thing I'm sure you have been to is meetings where there's no clear agenda. It's just whatever seems to happen or randomly come to the presiding officer's mind is going to be covered at that particular time. There's been no thought by the presiding person as to what they need to get accomplished at that particular meeting. I've even been to places where the presiding officer calls the meeting to order and says, all right, what do we need to talk about tonight? And suddenly it's kind of a leaderless meeting because the audience is being asked to somehow come up with their own agenda at the same time. We're going to go through in detail later in this session about the needs of an agenda. One thing that really bothers me at some Lions Club meetings, and that includes my own club sometimes, is when we have someone come in and do a salesman program. And what I mean by that is they're there to sell the Lions Club something. Sell them, or worse than that, or equally to the salesman program, is someone that's there really wanting a donation, either from the club or, more importantly, or worse, from the individual members of that club. I can remember going to a club meeting where a person came in, and I put this in perspective because it was a really bad program, but the guy was there on pre-need funeral services. It was a terrible program, but he was there to sell our Lions Club members on signing up for pre-need funeral services. Not an exciting topic. Our members don't want to come and be tried to be sold something. So if you're soliciting programs, be careful about that. At the same time, our members don't need to be hit up constantly for donations. Particularly direct solicitation for the club members to write a check or make a donation. That leaves a bad taste, and that's not what they signed up for to be a member. So as we'll talk about later, making sure your programs have an expectation. If it's a charitable activity that's needing financial or other support, it's okay for the program to come in and explain what they're doing, but make it clear that they're not going to be allowed to make a direct solicitation of members at the meeting. That's just inappropriate. And you don't want club members feeling like they're getting pressured to write a check to something every time they show up at a club meeting. The cute or funny folks. This often happens with the president who thinks they're a comedian that stands up and tries to be real cute or funny throughout the meeting, or a tail twister that often does this and tells inside jokes that only a few people think about. It's really important that any humor be appropriate at a club meeting and that it not be insider or just a joke that a few people have. So it's okay to have fun and make jokes and have fun and entertainment, but make sure it's not the cutesy inside track that really gets a meeting offline. Run-on programs, we're going to talk about that in detail, where you have a person that's invited to present a program on some topic, and they're still going on after 30 or 40 or 50 minutes, which leads directly back to whether or not the meeting's going to end on time. Bad food. You can look at me and tell that I like food. But it will definitely affect your club meeting and the quality and effectiveness of your club meeting if you don't have good food that's reasonably priced so your members can afford. And so that is often a big challenge for clubs, is that if they're having meals at their meetings, which are not required, but if they have, is the food good? I know my clubs had to move restaurants occasionally for that very reason. And so that becomes a part of having an effective club meeting. Likewise, a bad meeting place. My club met a few years ago at a steakhouse type, family steakhouse type place that proverbially had the air conditioning broken. Now, I'm in Georgia, and in June, July, and August, having no air conditioning for a meeting of 50, 60 people in a room, not a pleasant experience. So often that is a circumstance that needs to be addressed that will affect a bad meeting. The concept of "that's my seat." This happens a lot of times at club meetings where people sit at the same place and with the same people every time, and often guests are even asked or encouraged to move rudely because they're where somebody normally sits. And so there's a part of the fostering of an open relationship is to make sure that club members intermingle and don't sit at the same place every time, and encourage a greater fellowship. A tail twister out of control. I have been to meetings where tail twisters are fining folks 10, 15, 20 bucks for doing something, or they're just going way too long. A reasonable tail twister time, if you're going to have an hour and a half club meeting, 10 minutes, I think might be reasonable. 5 minutes, depending on how much business there is. So you want to make sure your tail twister, first of all, the board of directors works with the tail twister to define what fines are. Some clubs limit it to $1, some $0.25. But again, the fine is something not to raise money for the club. It's actually just a little humor. And so making sure the tail twister is not out of control, and is reasonably functioning in a way that helps build fellowship and fun in the club is critical. Likewise, going to clubs where you have no tail twister, or effectively you have a tail twister that does nothing but more than stand up and say, "All right, y'all, I'm the tail twister. Here's my hat that I'm passing around. Throw $1 in." You need the humor and the intent of a tail twister. As part of the Lions University program, there will be a session dedicated to the tail twister. And for information on these particular points, I encourage you to participate in that class. All of these bad meeting items, and again, I'm sure you came up with some on your own, boil down to one critical thing: poor planning. Poor planning about whether there's an agenda, starting and ending on time, bad food. All of these result in that the officers, particularly, unfortunately, the presiding officer, which in a club's a president, really have not done an adequate job of planning for the meeting. And that often involves other people that are responsible for program selection. And in my club, that's always the job of the first vice president, is to line up programs for our club meetings. And so it's a combination of those people failing to do their jobs that results in a bad meeting. And the first and primary issue for really helping build effective meetings is making sure that there is a reasonable agenda developed for that meeting. And so I want you to again pause the video for a second and think through what should be included in a normal agenda for a club meeting. What do you think would benefit folks and be parts of an element of an agenda for your club meeting? In fact, do it as an exercise. Pause the video now and write out a club agenda. When you get finished with that, start the video back and we'll continue. We're going to be going through in detail a sample club agenda. In no way am I saying this is absolutely what every Lions club should have. No, you should customize the agenda that we're going to work through for whatever works best with your club. This is the type of topic that maybe a good board discussion of your club's board of directors should take place to really make sure that the elements are and the timing is correct. But pretty well, the standard agenda we're going to talk about is a great place to start that discussion. The second question on the board is who should have the agenda? And I bring this up because oftentimes I've known club presidents that copy and hand out an agenda or a program, if you'd have it, for the evening so that folks know what is coming up on the agenda. That's effective. Sometimes they just share that with key officers, particularly those that are on the agenda themselves, so they know when to be ready, that their particular part of the program is coming up. At the same time, copying and distributing agendas and programs to lots of people can be expensive. And in this day of electronic technology, maybe emailing that in advance to those key officers is a better and more environmentally sensitive way to share that agenda. But that is something to definitely consider. If your club conducts business sessions at your meetings, meaning you actually engage in a business as opposed to leaving all of that to the board of directors, it's really important that your secretary take minutes of these regular club meetings, especially where business is being conducted. So I would definitely think it would be wise to share that agenda with your club secretary. The club secretary session that's part of Lions University will be covering many things about the job of secretary, including minute taking. And taking effective minutes is much easier if you have, even while you're taking the minutes, an agenda to follow and coordinate your minutes on. The web page that's visible on the screen is actually to download the handout that accompanies this session. Hopefully you've done that already in advance. If not, you can pause the video and download that, because it contains a very detailed agenda, which we're going to have on the screen a summary of, but as well as some notes about a traditional agenda for a club meeting. And so we're going to assume that you are presiding over and president of a standard Lions club that has an evening meeting. And for the purposes of this is what this agenda would look like. Clearly, your club may be very different. If you meet at noontime during business week and have business professionals in your club, then you may need to cut this agenda down considerably so that it can be within an hour framework. But this is an evening, hour and a half long agenda. Again, it's a great place to start. And you'll see that the first thing we do is start with calling the meeting to order. And that needs to happen right on time. You don't start early because everybody may not be there. You don't wait on Fred and Sue because you know they're running late. No, that's disrespectful to those that showed up on time. And it also discourages folks. I'm a member of my church's choir. And our choir director, he's retired now, but I'll pick on him. He was absolutely always started choir rehearsal 10 or 15 minutes late. And it got to where nobody was there when the rehearsal was supposed to start because the expectation was it was going to start late anyway. And so it's critical to start your meetings right on time. Depending on the tradition of your club, an invocation of some type would be appropriate. It's important to remember as you work with people on invocations that Lions clubs are not tied to a particular religion or denomination within those religions. So we want to be somewhat sensitive with the invocation, if your club has one, that it does not offend members or inappropriately can be viewed as pushing a particular religion or view. Pledge to the flag is often common in the United States. I'm not sure our friends up in Canada do that, but a pledge to the flag is something very common to be done at that meeting. It's appropriate to start that after that is some type of introduction of special guest and welcome to any visitors. And your club should do that, taking a few minutes to recognize those guests that you have. In addition, my club does something I love, which is called a sunshine report. We have one member that's responsible for doing this. The president calls on that person. And the purpose of that is that anything that any members or family members of club members that are having health problems, going through problems of any type, and also positive things. So and so's son just graduated from college with honors, and so that it's both positive as well as things that members should think about that's going on for club members that may have an operation coming up or are in the hospital or things of that nature that's shared with the club. That's very much a part of building a sense of fellowship and family among the club members. Particularly at 710, under this little agenda, if your club operates business at your club meetings as opposed to referring all of that to board meetings, then a secretary's report should likewise be at the beginning, which would act to approve the minutes. Now, we have a separate session in Lines University on managing business type meetings. This session is geared toward the traditional club meeting, but definitely we are having in our curriculum information about things like Robert's Rules of Order and procedure and how to facilitate discussion and not insult people. All of that is covered in another class that's part of Lines University. Tonight we're talking just about a more traditional club meeting where you have announcements of business, but a board of directors has met and made the decisions concerning the operation of the club. And so the secretary's report might be very simple, even a report of, at a board meeting, the following action was done, so that the club knows what the board's doing if it's meeting separately. You'll notice in this agenda, I have about 20 minutes in there for a meal. That's not a lot of time if the club members have to go through a buffet line of some type or they've ordered off a menu and service. And this is something that you should work with whoever is hosting your club as far as restaurant or the meal that's being provided. The intent is that the first person that gets up and goes through a line at a buffet or is served their meal from the restaurant is going to be through with that meal pretty quickly. And usually about 20 minutes is what most people consume a meal or less. And so they're going to start getting anxious if the meeting drags on too long. There's nothing wrong with people that haven't finished their meal to continue eating while you go through the rest of the meeting. But letting everybody, I had a club president a few years ago, he would be the last person through the buffet line, and he was a slow eater, so that obviously the meeting wouldn't start back until he was completely finished from his meal. And of course, our club meetings ran real long that year. They exceeded the golden rule in my club of an hour and a half meeting. There were times, honestly, when I was club president, I didn't get to eat. Or I actually snuck in the restaurant early and ate before the meeting even started so that I could deal with questions and help foster fellowship during that meal among our members. That's hard on a club president, but I encourage you to keep the meal time in a reasonable amount so that folks don't get fidgety and bored after they've completed the meal. An introduction of whatever program you're going to have for your club meeting should be very, very short and simple. It's not a time to read a long, lengthy bio. 3-4 minutes of introduction is more than adequate. I don't care if you're introducing anyone, whether they're the President of the United States or your district governor. A simple, concrete introduction is all that's necessary. And should emphasize things that are not commonly necessarily known by people. If you have a printed program that lists their bio, don't stand and read the bio that everybody's had in the program all day. So a reasonably quick introduction of the program. And the program then takes place. And again, the rule of that you see there of 20 minutes is about the time that I allocate for a club program. Why? Well, most studies say that the human brain really can only pay attention without some type of material break for about 11 minutes. So 20 minutes is still pushing it. And of course, here you are listening to this video, which is longer than 20 minutes. At the same time, you have the opportunity to pause it and take a break or do some of the exercises we've talked about. 20 minutes is a reasonable time for someone to make a presentation, including answers, and we're going to go through those some of those points a little later in our session. But you should be prepared to cut in on the program, and we'll talk about that momentarily. Once the program is finished, then the president or presiding officer should show some type of appreciation to the speaker. If your club has a certificate to hand them, thanking them, some clubs still provide little novelties like lions and letter openers, things of that nature, and appreciation for speakers. That's always appropriate to do some kind of simple appreciation for the speaker. Here's a critical issue. Do not dismiss the speaker. If that person is taking up 20 minutes of your club's time for whatever they're doing, then it's their opportunity to also learn a little bit about your club. Keep them there through the business session, through the tail twister, through whatever else happens in your meeting. That way they learn and honestly are a prospective member. I've seen presenters actually ask to leave after they make their presentation. To me, that's kind of rude. If you, again, think you're important enough to occupy 20 minutes of a club's meeting and them listen to you, then you should have the deference to stay and listen to their rest of their meeting and then be there to answer questions and talk with people after the meeting. Tail twister. Tail twister then is kind of an interesting thing. Tail twisters can be great. Tail twisters can be bad. But I think if you have more than 10 minutes of tail twisting, it's probably too much. So I encourage you to take part in the tail twister session of Lions University and learn more about that. But it's critical to have that tail twister that brings some fun and builds and fosters fellowship in the meeting. Then I have a 15-minute section for the business portion of the meeting. Depending on what your club does, it may be that you actually don't have a board of directors that operates separate and apart, so you may have a lot of business. Or it may be a series of committee reports and reports from officers about what's coming up. But every club should have programming going on at the club level, promoting projects and things that you're doing that should be included in that business portion. You as club president need to take the time to go through and make sure that the business portion of the meeting is covered. Make sure that people know that you're going to call on them. Proverbially, when I got to a club meeting, there were always those few committee chairs that I hadn't talked to, either my fault or theirs. So I found myself penciling in their time on my agenda that evening, and that's okay. But what's critical is more advanced planning is always wise. Then at the end of the meeting, you as the presiding officer should make a quick wrap-up, reminding club members of the dates, thanking the speaker again for being there, and if you have an inspiring little story or comment to add, but nothing that lasts more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes so that at 8:30, this hour-and-a-half long meeting is adjourned and the folks are headed out the door. Again, this is a sample agenda. A sample agenda of what makes a timely, effectively run club meeting. Working up such a club agenda and putting it in writing is critical. I've never met someone that can effectively do all of this and remember every detail without the written agenda. So please consider carefully writing out and working on a club agenda if you're the presiding officer. So, my next question is, what makes a good meeting? We asked a question earlier about what makes a bad meeting. So let's think a lot of the reverse of those things are probably applicable. But you may want to pause this video for just a second and see for yourself really what makes a club meeting effectively good. Once you come back, I'm going to try to summarize those. Okay, so what makes a good meeting? All the things we talked about, an agenda, a good speaker, good meal, all of the an atmosphere among the club members where it's friendly and they're having some fun. All of those things are effective for a good meeting. But I summarize them in what I call the 3 F's, which are the 3 values that should be present at every single Lions Club meeting of any kind. Whether it's a district convention, an international convention, a state convention, or all the way down to your club meeting and especially zone meetings. It ought to have these 3 absolutes that occur in every single club meeting. And they all start with the word F, or the letter F, excuse me. The first is fellowship, fun, and fulfillment. Well, what am I talking about? Well, let's talk about each of those. Fellowship. It's critical that your club foster a sense of fellowship among its members. The Sunshine Report I talked about is a prime example of trying to build that sense of community or fellowship among your members. Making sure the people sit with different people and get to know everybody in the club, that's a part of. And it has to be fostered by you as the leaders. Used to, in the old days, it was a strong suggestion that the immediate past president of the club becomes the club's official greeter and greets everybody and makes everybody feel welcome at club meetings. Designating 1 or 2 Lions to definitely be responsible for greeting not just visitors, but everybody that comes to a club meeting is important. And there are some games that some people use. And if you do an internet search for meeting games, you'll come up with some ideas that might help build a sense of fellowship. But one thing that is very different about being a part of a Lions Club than even other civic organizations is our sense of fellowship. You go and work on a Habitat for Humanity house one weekend. You feel good, you've made an indent in your community, you've improved things, but you're not building a sense of family and community or fellowship with anybody else. Lions clubs that function 365 days a year, doing service projects monthly or bi-monthly and providing community things, build a sense of fellowship and community. That's a critical aspect of your club that you really need to facilitate. And I cannot overemphasize how critical it is that your members build that sense of fellowship. So what about fun? Well, there are a lot of things that can be said about fun, and every meeting should have fun, and it should be inclusive fun that everybody can take part of. And every meeting should have some fun, and the tail twister or something like that. There are all kinds of things and neat things I've seen at meetings. One meeting, my club, for example, we met on Halloween, so we all came in costume. We've had surprise guests come. We've had hay rides as club meetings. That's what I'm saying. Every 5th meeting, go all out and do something unique with hay rides. We've had club meetings where, like casino nights and all kinds of things. Be creative to make sure your club has fun. Don't have the same regimented meeting style every single meeting. Do things unique, have unique menus, have theme nights. Make sure it's inclusive, though. Again, back to the bad tail twister that has some inside jokes that only 2 or 3 people know. It should be an inclusive fun that everybody can participate. And so it's critical that your club meetings include fun. And the tail twister should be a vital part of that by having good-natured fun that doesn't hurt or insult or break anybody's bank. And so think about making sure you include fun at your club meetings. The third F is fulfillment. And I'll be very candid with you. The concept of whether or not your members feel like their membership is fulfilling is why they stay or don't stay as a member of your club. So let's talk about fulfillment, because there are several aspects to that. Fulfillment can be done by inspirational programs. The program itself is someone that comes in and shows what they are doing as part of the Lions community and why it's important, and that they fulfill, as individual members, feel fulfilled because of what they're doing as Lions. An example of that is an effective LCIF presentation that lets them know that what they're contributing as part of the Lions community through LCIF, the impact they're having. Inspirational programs about projects you've done in the community. I grew up in a Boy Scout troop. My father was a member of the Civic Club that sponsored my Boy Scout troop. One of the highlights of every kid that became an Eagle Scout was the recognition that the club members gave at a club meeting to that Eagle Scout. Those are the type things that give and build a sense of fulfillment through your club programs. Recognizing members for jobs they've done well. Now, the picture on the board is of a plaque being handed out. But plaques are great and wonderful, but they are not in and of themselves necessary. And sure, they may be for certain jobs and done so forth, but oftentimes simple recognition, pat on the back, a $5 gift certificate to Starbucks to the guy that drinks coffee. My club did a haunted house for years. And so in recognition for those that worked on the haunted house, the chairman gave out little dollar store rubber rats. I didn't think much about that appreciation gift till I went to one of our members' houses one time, and there on the mantle in their living room was their rubber rat. They were proud of that rubber rat for the showing and demonstrating the leadership they had provided to that particular project. So recognition shouldn't be formal. There are some great resources on the Lions Club International website. Just type in a search for recognition, and there's a downloadable resource that has tons of information there. The feeling that the club is making a difference. Every club meeting, and sometimes that's done by programs, but sometimes it's not. I'll give you a quick example. Our club does a health fair. I wasn't real excited about the health fair. I worked at it every year, but I really didn't think that it had much to do, and really didn't understand in my mind why it was a priority for our club. Well, at a club meeting shortly after our health fair, a gentleman showed up that we'd tried to recruit him in our club for years, and he just wouldn't join the club. And he actually interrupted the club president and said, "I got something to say." And we were all kind of like, why'd this guy come, first of all, and no telling what he's going to have to say, because we have to admit this guy's pretty political. Well, to make a long story short, he explained how his daughter had gone to our health fair the Saturday before that meeting. And as part of that, she'd had an EKG done. And the doctors got real worried when they saw the EKG and sent her straight to the hospital. And she was quickly transported actually to a major hospital in Atlanta and had open heart surgery that afternoon. And the doctors had informed him very clearly that if she had not gotten that EKG that day, then she probably would have had a very severe heart attack. And so he looks at us in the eye and he says, "Y'all saved my daughter's life, and I want to thank you." Now that meeting, our club members left feeling very much that the health fair was part of a fulfillment of our purpose. And so having the person come in and thank the club briefly is a very key thing to making sure those members feel fulfillment. Because that's why we honestly are part of a Lions Club. We want a sense that we're making a difference in our community, a difference in the world as part of that. So including that as part of your regular club program is critical. So our last thing I want to talk about is really managing programs. The majority of Lions Clubs have programs, that is, people that come and make a formal presentation or speech to the Lions Club. That occurs almost in every Lions Club when the district governor makes his or her formal annual visit. But most clubs have it in other times. And I want to talk about program management or how you go about that for just a few more minutes, because it's an important aspect of your club. Because you, as club president or whoever is making your program selections, first of all, needs to honor the first thing, and that's be careful of program selection. I talked earlier about the sales pitch program that's bad, but you must be careful of picking the people that are not there just to sell something or get something out of the club members. Instead, it somehow is educational for the club members or inspirational to the club members. So be careful who you pick, and make sure the second aspect of that is to make the program know your expectations. For example, for some strange reason, I'm often invited to speak at Lions Club meetings. One of the first questions out of my mouth is, well, how long do you want me to speak? And I would say 5 times out of 6, the answer is, oh, take all the time you want. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. Whoever's making your program selection should be very careful about making sure that person knows their expectations. Our club, and that's very simple. We normally programs have 20 minutes, including question and answer sessions. So if you're going to make yourself available to answer questions and you think you're going to run longer, maybe we can do that after the meeting, letting them know that you are expecting them to stay for the whole meeting. Are there going to be audio-visual needs that they need to take care of? And if those are they going to need to set up ahead or after, things of that nature? So good communication about what you expect, including if it's a charitable group that's used to soliciting funds, making clear that you're really not wanting them to make a direct solicitation or hand out pledge envelopes or anything of that nature at that meeting, and making sure they understand your expectations. Because you're doing a service for whoever that program is. They have something they're wanting to promote or educate or sell or get contributions for. And so you're doing them a favor, really, by being a program at your club. Now, they may be doing you a favor, too, by filling that slot of education and inspiration for your club members. But it's an equal partnership. And so making sure they politely know the expectations is critical in advance. Third point about program control is, after you've made those expectations clear, make sure you're prepared to cut in. If someone has been asked to speak for 20 minutes and they're still going on after that time has run up, it's appropriate for the presiding officer then to casually stand up. Most of the time, the person gets that message. If they don't, then you start advancing toward them, even to the point that if they still aren't getting the message, you do, in fact, put your hand on, thank you so much. I know you've got so much more to share. Susie is going to stay after the meeting to answer questions and continue this discussion. Let's give her a round of applause. Why am I saying that? Because number one, somebody in your club membership may not be enjoying the program that's now gone on 25 minutes instead of the 20 that they were allotted. Secondly, you've got to keep control of your meeting and keep it functioning on time. So exercising those skills. Any of you were at San Juan Forum this year in San Juan, you know that I ended up having to do that at a luncheon speaker, a major speaker that was brought in and paid money to be there, but was running long. And we had afternoon sessions that people needed to get to and presenters needed to prepare for and all of those things. So I exercised these same steps of being prepared to cut in and ultimately kind of escorted him as politely as possible toward wrapping up his presentation. It's your meeting. You need to stay in control. Finally, limit question and answer sessions. If the person is going to have a question and answer session, it's okay as part of that 20 minutes to do that. Again, don't let that run on. And part of keeping the program there to answer further questions is once their time's up, then say, okay, we'll do that afterwards. Again, that is a way that oftentimes programs run a lot longer than they need to, because 2 or 3 members have burning questions or issues that they want to take up, but they're boring the other members by having what amounts to a personal conversation through the question and answer session. So it's important to limit those question and answers and encourage to keep them, the program there after, to have individual conversations. It's your meeting. Keeping good control is critical. So we've been through a lot, and I appreciate you taking the time to review this video, but let's see what we've done. We've defined the importance of the club meeting in the life of your club, that it's that blood of your club. We've described what makes a bad meeting and talked about how to review or overcome some of those bad issues. We've gone through a sample club agenda. We've talked about the 3 F's, as I call them, of fun, fellowship, and fulfillment that should be included in every effective Lions Club meeting. And finally, we went through some techniques about speaker management. I want to thank you for taking the time to go through this. I want to remind you that you can get credit for having completed this course if you successfully complete a quiz. The link at the bottom of the screen at lionsuniversity.org, which is also an easy way to go, and then just click on Bachelor Program in this particular session, which is 104, Effective Club Meetings, will then have a link to a very short quiz, a 10-question quiz, that if you complete successfully, you will have gained 1 course under your belt toward a bachelor degree in Lionism. Quickly remind you about activating your membership if you have not done so already. If you're not a prior forum participant in 13, 14, or 15, then you need to create a Lions University student membership at members.lionsforum.org so that we can track and communicate with you concerning future sessions, but also that creates a profile where we track which classes you have completed. We also want to remind you that there is an ongoing discussion board about this topic. As part of Lions University and the USA-Canada Lions Leadership Forum, there is a discussion board that will address and discuss all kinds of topics about meeting management. That's where some people may agree or disagree with some things that we've talked about here. And I encourage you to check that out. Go to lionsforum.org. Click the link to the discussion board, and then you'll quickly see a list of topics, including effective club meetings. I want to thank you for taking this time to be with us on this for this particular session. And again, we always appreciate those of you that are willing to learn a little more and tonight about effective club meetings. Thank you.